Yeah, I wanted to say a few words before we move forward to discuss or the talk about Madhyamika. This kind of teachings bring up lots of stuff, the activities. Therefore, Buddha didn't talk Madhyamika right away. I was talking about the three turning of the wheel, right? So three occasions Buddha taught. First one, the foundational teaching. Then this is the second turning of the wheel, Madhyamika, or the emptiness teaching. Then Buddha thought this is not for everybody, need a maturity. This kept it very secret. I was talking about this historical mythology of the Naga king, kept it under the water, ocean. Then when time came, around the 2 centuries after, then Nagarjuna, a great master of the Madhyamika, retrieved from the ocean. Then started to explain and taught. This is famous, for example, Heart Sutra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form and not other than form and so forth. That is the Heart Sutra, right? The interpretation of that, if any creatures come up, some kind of stirring up creatures. One reaction is maybe very passionate. Okay, I will get this one. I know that one. Extremely excited about the emptiness teaching and the love Madhyamika, almost like a missionary like feeling. Another one is aggressions, hatred. I hate Madhyamika. I hate to think, go in that another direction. Third one is the blank. Huh? What this talking about? Some kind of resistance, space out feeling. If those things come, don't worry about it. That is one of the, you can say, first step, because we've been living in this confused, self-created misconception and deceptive reality since the beginningless of time. If you hear this kind of teaching presented, then some kind of reaction came up. And that's actually, in a sense, something working. Extreme discursiveness, cannot focus, always mind kind of goes, couldn't understand, couldn't compute, sudden blankness, and so forth. You cannot hold that in your mind. So don't worry about it. So this is the process and the first step. It said we have to hear again and again. This is not about just one time attending 1 hour things and then got everything. All these ancient masters keep telling us that study, contemplation, and meditation again and again and again. In China, there is a saying like 10,000 times you have to do. I guess, 100,000 hours we have to listen to Madhyamika. Then it comes all these emotions, and I used to cry. I used to go to my teacher, read Ramazan Kappa's certain very difficult one, but all these things comes up. So don't worry about that. But then persistence is important. Learn, question, and continue. Knowing emptiness is very important because it's reorient subject in a way that other type of knowledge cannot do it. We have a lot of different kind of knowledge, right? But this understanding of emptiness, realizing emptiness, kind of bring the paradigm shift, you can say. Then your true nature revealed, which is compassion. So that's why, many ways to say it, but very important. So we continue to practice. Then what is the core of Madhyamika, middle way view? So there are two veils or two obscurations that keeps us from seeing the nature of reality directly. One is discretion, or the conflicted emotions, the veil of conflicted emotions. Then second veil, the veil of this conceptuality and concept. This is really core of veil, which Madhyamika is really attacking. Satara veil, you can say. I often talk about this metaphor of gold. See, let's see, we are like a pure gold. then all these obscuration covering up, then peeling off one by one. So if you peel the one, then another veil here. Then core of the veil is this conceptuality. You can say there are the concept or the misunderstanding or the cognitive obscuration. This is the ultimate. We need to have an ultimate antidote. So that is the wisdom cutting or wisdom perceiving the emptiness. That is the antidote to this one, second Satara veil. So that's the territory Madhyamika really nail, digging into the antidote. How can we root it out or remove it? So that's the question. So then what does it mean by conceptuality? That's actually, there are many layers. So there are 4 layers, dimensions. Let me say that how this erroneous misunderstanding comes up. First one is labeling or naming, prapancha in Sanskrit. Naming or distinction making. First child born, right? Then the naming, oh, this is the table, he didn't know, but this is the table, then just start labeling, begin to label. Then if we use this Chandra Kyoto's metaphor, child or son or daughter, or a Barren woman. Yeah, Barren woman cannot have a baby, right? So that's called the child of Barren woman. That is the first one, naming. You are naming this child. Oh, okay, Kandora or whatever. This is a child of Barren woman. Second is elaboration. First naming, then the elaboration. Vikalpa in Sanskrit. Give characteristics or qualities attributed to the label. For example, Kandora named. Then, oh, Kandora is this way. Or Kandora has this, such things, or whatever. Metaphor is give some kind of characteristic to a child of a Barren woman. Develop solidity. Okay, that's the second step. What we are doing. Then the third one is clinging. So once you put the characteristics, or Kandora is death, then clinging start. That is desire or aversion, develop creatures because of that. That means, for example, falling in love with a child of a Barren woman. In my case, if I kind of first naming, okay, partner, whatever, Mr. B or whatever, then bring it to its elaboration. Oh, B is perfect. I finally found this soulmate. Then I attached, clinging, pressures up, arise, desire, or passion, or emotional relationship to what you labels. Just merely label, but so that is like falling in love with a child of a Barren woman. Then finally, fourth one is a view. It's become your view, worldview, juristi in Sanskrit, opinion. So made up mind, develop solid world, or solid person, or solid me. So that means marriage with a child of a Barren woman. That's what we have been doing. So this is our conceptual world. So that's what it means by conceptuality, imputations, solid world where we live almost all the time. We are living in assumption. This is our setup, routinized, automatic life. Then Madhyamika is saying, as long as we are living behind this veil, I was talking about the veil of conflicted emotion and conceptuality, we never experience anything freshly, dynamically. We cannot experience true nature of reality. We are stuck in the very dead, unexamined conceptual world. We never look at the world freshly, fresh eye, this beauty. When we look at the world, already there, concept, solid world out there. So this knowledge is so important. So naming itself is not the problem. Naming Kandora, or whatever, or cup, or naming itself is no problem. What is the problem? Problem is that we substitute naming and belief that the thing exists for direct experience. Thing is that this conceptual world is fragile. This is assumption. because it's not actually exist. It's like a fantasy, fantasize the world. In a sense, it doesn't have a ground or the shaky ground, which we kind of created arbitrarily. So then, if we examine, we have to examine our conceptual world through this way. For example, analysis. I brought up a few ways to do it. Mahamudra approach is one way, look at directly, whether there's something called the mind. Then all these aspects we just started to investigate if there's such a thing there. Then the analytical, also I presented this for analysis of the I, searching for the I, then come to some kind of, there's nothing, no thief there. I thought I was, try to look for the thief. Then we couldn't find it. So that the unfindability then rests there. Cannot rest in that one all the time. But then if you distract it, you do it again, again, again. Then eventually come to some called mental image, tonchi in Tibetans. Then we come to that mental image. Then eventually come to the direct experience. With the help of bodhicitta and all the other, or accumulation of merit, we need a tremendous accumulation of merit to come to realize emptiness. It's not just about the intellect thing, try to figure out. That's maybe the difference between the Western philosophy and the Madhyamika. And also I was talking of the Madhyamika, it's not just ontology, it's epistemology. In Western, there are a big gap between the ontological and analysis, philosophy, things out there, and then talk about it, or the epistemology and psychological or the inner mind aspect separated. This one is ontology, epistemology, same. Now in the West, I think catching up, but even this mind itself doesn't exist from its own side. But there are lots to explore, continue to be curious about. And the question, there are stages, actually, I can talk about realizing emptiness. So first, have some kind of doubt, this automatic way of looking at things and living life. Started to question about. That's very good. Be curious about this reality, ultimate reality, and then relative reality, how both can be hold together. Lama Tsongkhapa was very big. That's one of his contribution. He equated this emptiness with dependent arising. Then his wholeness is really big on that one. Whenever he teaches compassion, something about the compassion and love, then he talks about emptiness. Then when he talks about very difficult philosophical text on emptiness, then bring compassion and love and the universal responsibility. Lama Tsongkhapa's three principal aspects of the path, when one becomes both together, ultimate and relative. When one comes to that equation, you can say you nailed it. You come to the ultimate understanding of reality. And also develop the trust within ourselves. We have a capacity to be able to do that, following these authentic traditions and lineage masters. Whatever we practice, we are practicing so far, help assist the understanding of this. Especially the Lama Tsongkhapa's tradition, emphasis of this Lamrim or whatever we have been doing, everything supports to understand the emptiness. Because that's why, for example, Buddha didn't teach emptiness right away. Because prematurely we are exposed to this kind of teaching, it goes to the extreme. It's easily, right? Everything is empty, mistaken appearance. Then what's the point of ethical, cause and effect, or the karma, or other stuff? We don't need to do those things. All these misperception, but I think we are prepared and enough to really take in bits by bits and bring the message, not just from the head, kind of embodied way. Oh, that really feels like right. That's also a tantric view, right? All the tantra are based on this. When your mind purified, when your mind become non-dual, then every thing you see is a pure vision, a divine, including yourself. So this is a process, but nice. We started. Okay, just sit 1 minute. So just 1 minute, soak in your direct experience. Don't worry about whatever I said. If you couldn't understand, they couldn't hear. Just being here today to export this long tradition, authentic tradition, which comes from Shakyamuni Buddha. And so many great masters invested to try to understand this reality, then came out as awakened beings. So we are just kind of tasted the drop of that nectar of the river with appreciation of fortune, how fortunate we are able to hear, listen to this kind of teachings.